as the Eagles lose to this Detroit Lions team. And a lot of people, Casey, last week came on the show and broke it down, including the people in Detroit, and had a hard time finding areas that Detroit would be able to exploit. But they found one. They went after Eagles linebacker Michael Kendricks, hitting some passes out of the backfield. But overall, I want to start off with, were there some concerning signs in this game that could carry over the next couple of weeks here, or is it just kind of a one game out of the bye? They looked a little sluggish.
I think there's some concerning issues long term. In fact, what's that old professional wrestling saying? They say that time off is a wrestler's worst enemy, and I think that might have been the case with the Eagles this week, because you take a week off and you think you'd come back and be refreshed and have a great game plan, and the Lions really not only outplayed the Eagles, I think, but they also outcoached them. And they did find a weakness in attacking on the perimeter. And rushing plays, they really went after the Eagles on the perimeter. They were doing jet sweeps. They were doing forward pass jet sweeps. They were doing regular sweeps. Doing a lot of things to get to the outside. And the funny thing was, they did it all during the first half, and in the second half they didn't do it. And I think that the reason they didn't do it is they only came in with so many plays designed to attack the perimeter, and they didn't realize how well they were going to work. I think in future weeks teams are going to have a lot more perimeter plays and not run out of their game plan. So it's something I think the Eagles can't count on not seeing over the course of a full game unless they figure a way to stop these plays.
Yeah, that's something where, after 3-4 weeks, teams start to see your tendencies a little bit. And I guess the Lions, who also know Jim Schwartz pretty well, realize, hey, he's really aggressive in certain areas. We can go out and exploit there. But, Casey, you know as well as anyone, this is a copycat league, and you're probably going to see a lot of running backs popping out of the backfield now against Philadelphia.
Yeah, and all of that, it takes away Fletcher Cox. It's a great way to not have to worry about Fletcher Cox. If you can go to the outside and you can start getting these perimeter plays and you can start doing these things and attacking them on the outside, if you can start doing that and saying, okay, well, now your corners and now your outside linebackers, now other players are going to have to stop things. Cox was just – I don't want to say he was a non-factor in this game, but he was. I thought he was less of a factor for most of the game than he was in any of the earlier games, and it's something where teams are going to say, "Great, it's like the used to be the Lions and Indomitian C. You just decided, the Patriots will play the Lions, and they'd say we're just never going to run at you, or the Jets, and the Patriots say we're going to go somewhere else. But now with the Eagles, you've got somewhere else to go, and that's." The Eagles were stopping perimeter plays later in the game, so they'll have a counterattack too, but you've got to force teams to try to go up the gut, because if they can take Fletcher Cox out of your rush game plan that easily, it's a really big issue for the Eagles.
Yeah, and in the second half, it was a different story. The Eagles only gave up 45 total yards in the second half. So was that them making an adjustment, or as you kind of indicated, it sounds like the Lions, didn't really anticipate that they would be so successful and maybe ran out of plays in the playbook?
I think that it was a combination of both. There was a rushing play. There was a perimeter play the Lions ran with Golden Tate. I think they had him in the backfield. They tried to attack him on the outside there, and the Eagles really defeated that play. But that's kind of a gadget play. That's not a play where you're going to expect, it's something you're going to go to all the time. So I think the Lions got as deep in their playbook as they could. But, yeah, the Eagles adjusted to it, and they just started to attack on the outside. And instead of trying to string the plays out on the outside, which wasn't working for them, they were attacking and trying to get upfield and get the same kind of penetration you want to get on an inside rushing play. So it was, they adapted and adjusted, but I don't think that's the sort of thing that, like I said, I think that other teams are going to come back and have a lot more plays to them. Because I got the impression that just the Lions, they had their checklist and they had whether it were 5, 6, 7, 8 perimeter plays, and they'd gone through them and they didn't have anything else to go to.
Hey, KC, what did you think of the play call that used Ryan Matthews on that sweep late in the game?
I thought it was a terrible play call because it's 3rd and 2. The Lions have used all their timeouts, and the Eagles, if they get a first down, they pretty much win the game. They go to the outside, and they have Selleck and Jordan Matthews as lead blockers out there. When Selleck comes in from the outside, it looks like he ends up double-teaming a defensive end, and it looks like he was supposed to take a linebacker and missed a linebacker. So right off the bat, now you've got an unblocked linebacker going to the outside. Matthews did just an awful little push shoulder block, just barely put his shoulder into it, and the cornerback, I think it was Darius Slay, easily beat the block. So as soon as Matthews goes to the outside, he already has 2 unblocked defenders out there. The play was dead from the beginning. So, yeah, he fumbles the ball, but it's the end of the game, and you're wanting Selleck and Jordan Matthews to be your lead back or your lead blockers on a play. That's your go-to play to clinch the game. That's who you go to, is having those guys block. I'm looking at that going, I don't understand that play call at all.
Did you have any take on the official, or do you have any take on the official's call in that instance? Should it have been a dead ball?
I thought that it should. I really thought it should have been a fumble, but I think it could go either way. But the point is, if you're letting the official, even if he didn't fumble the ball, it's still fourth down. It would have had to punt, so it would have been a bad play. Although it would have gotten more field position, so that was part of it. But my biggest takeaway was I just don't understand going to that. I mean, you've got other players you can go to. You've got the other. I don't want Jordan Matthews being my lead blocker on the ultimate play of the game.
Casey, I thought you hit the nail on the head early on there when you were talking about getting out-coached, particularly on defense. I thought Jim Schwartz got out-coached by the Lions in that first half. You talk about how it's a trend, and you can see how, you could see they put out a blueprint of how you can get around the Eagles there. A lot of people around here were giving Schwartz, rightfully so, after the first 3 weeks, a ton of credit for this defense. But he's supposed to be a really good coach, a good defensive coordinator. Do you see him making changes to understand that this is what teams are going to do and have better ways to defend that going down the stretch here?
I think that he's going to have to figure out how to stop the rushing plays to the outside without having to do. You can't take a lot from in the middle, because if you start doing things to play to the outside, they are going to run back up the gut. Although again, you've got Cox in the middle, so that's a plus for you. I think though he's got a personnel issue. I mean, I'm not sold that he's a great defensive coordinator, but the idea that you still look at, McKelvin came back, and the Lions, I think, only threw 2 passes his way, and he had great coverage on both of them. But you've got Carroll and Brooks as your 2 and 3 cornerbacks. Those guys should be 4 and 5 in a perfect situation. And yeah, you can augment some of that by bringing Jenkins down and having him do man coverage in certain situations. But you've got that kind of personnel weakness on the outside. I think that Schwartz is having to look and say, look, I'm going to hope that Cox can just shore up my running game in the middle, shore up my run defense in the middle, and he can pretty much take care of that. And then I've got my guys on the outside. I'm thinking more coverage than I'm thinking about a running play. So I think that's a big part of it. If you start spending a lot of time defending a running play to the outside, you got to wonder if that's going to hurt your coverage.
KC Joyner is with us, ESPN.com, NFL Insider. A lot of discussion about the last play where Wentz had some time, stepped up, and launched one 50 yards down the field to Nelson Aguilar. What'd you think of that particular play there that kind of sealed the deal? Because realistically, all right, Matthews fumbles, they kicked the field goal, but you had plenty of time to really try to get back down the field, and all you needed was to get into field goal range. So did you like Wentz taking a shot down the field? Now, Peterson admitted today, yesterday he kind of defended Wentz. Today he kind of backtracked and said, well, maybe that wasn't the best play. But what'd you think of that play call there?
You hear coaches say that you want to decide which play it is that's going to decide the game. If you can, okay, is that the play that I want to decide the ball game? And sometimes you have a choice, and sometimes you don't. In that case, you had a choice. Why you're throwing to Aguilar, he's covered one of the better defenders. He's got a safety over the top, and you're forcing a pass to him. I can't understand that. Wasn't there some kind of underneath play? It's not like it was a 4th down play and you didn't have another choice. It's the first play of the series. I mean, you can go and do a number of things, and he forces that pass. That was not the only pass, though, that Wentz forced to Aguilar. First series of the game, or first Philadelphia series of the game, they're down 7-0. They do a bootleg pass, and on the bootleg pass that they ran, there's 3 routes that the receivers were running. One's called an under route. It's where the running back comes underneath the defense. Another's an over route where you've got a receiver, I think it was a tight end, who's going across the middle. He's going between the linebacker and the safety level. So you got those 2 guys attacking horizontally across the defense, and then you've got Aguilar running a comeback route on the outside. Wentz does his play, and the over route is wide open. There's nobody within 4 or 5 yards of that receiver, so he should easily take that play. And that's what he was doing the first 3 weeks of the season. He just decided, he had a gunslinger moment and said, I'm throwing this ball to Aguilar on the comeback, which is crazy because the comeback, even if you complete it, it may only give you a few more yards than the other play, and it might not even net you as much if the other play can get some racks. So he throws it out there, and the Aguilar runs a terrible route, gets undercut, and nearly gets picked off. And I'm looking at that play going, I can't understand why he makes that play to Aguilar, or why he makes that choice. But then I also don't understand why they threw 7 passes to Aguilar yesterday, which is as many passes as they threw to Jordan Matthews and Zach Ertz combined. Aguilar's your go-to guy now? Again, you question the coaching.
Yeah, Casey, that was a point of why they got those targets. Now, we brought up the tight ends, too. Zach Ertz back in the field. Did they lean on Trey Burton too much? I mean, the way the targets were distributed was a question mark as well.
Yeah, big-time question mark. I mean, you're looking at the targets and you're going 7 to Aguilar, you're going 5 to Ryan Matthews. Okay, I get that. You want to get your running backs in the game. And we got 4 to Jordan Matthews. You got 4 to Sproles. You got 4 to Green Beckham. And Green Beckham's been playing better. I almost would like to see. If you'd have thrown 7 passes to Green Beckham instead of Aguilar, I might get it. I know Aguilar played well early on, but after that first series when he got undercut by the receiver, and that's the thing, the defensive back undercuts him. When you do the comeback route, you're trying to get between yourself and the defender to get open so the quarterback can throw the ball to you. But the last thing you can have happen, no matter what, is let the defender undercut you. Because if he does, it's a pick, and it could be a pick 6 because given the way that play goes. So after Aguilar made that play, I'm thinking, why don't the Eagles go away from him? Because we know what he's been in past years. Yeah, he's played better in weeks 1 through 3, but we know what he's been in past years, and you look at that play going, it seems like that he's not what they think he was. So I can't understand why you're not, you're throwing 3 passes to Ertz and 4 to Green Beckham, and then you're throwing 7 passes to Aguilar. It doesn't make any sense.
Hey, which overall, Wentz's numbers at the end of the day pretty good. It's still really good against the blitz. He got his first interception, which Peterson kind of said, we're glad we got that out of the way. It was inevitable. But what'd you think of him overall in the game yesterday? Because the numbers don't jump off the page, but the completion percentage still pretty high. How did Wentz play?
I thought he looked a little, I don't want to call it rattled. I don't think that's the word I want to use, but a little intense, a little caught up in the moment. It was the first time that he looked like a rookie. First time we said, wow, this guy is really, he had the pass tag we were just talking about. There were passes where he was much more inaccurate than he was the first 3 weeks. The first 3 weeks, it was almost all of his passes where they needed to be. He had 2 near interceptions, and one of them was on a bad overthrow. I think it was on a dig route, second or third quarter, and it wasn't even close to the receiver. He was making there were a number of different little errors that he was making. They had the 2 delay of game penalties, which maybe on him, maybe not on him, but that said that there was an issue, and it seemed as if he was trying to again make plays. First time he looked like a gunslinger too, whereas a lot of rookie quarterbacks, they've got powerful arms. They want to showcase those arms and say, yeah, I could be a gunslinger. And that's about what it looked like on the Aguilar play. Was I'm going to force this ball downfield because I've got a powerful arm. And in the first 3 weeks, you didn't see that, and that's the sort of thing. That's why Carson Palmer has had the kind of career he's had. Great talent, but he always takes chances he shouldn't take, and that's why you can look at a lot of great quarterbacks when they let the gunslinger tendency take over. It comes back to haunt them. Wentz needs to just check that gunslinger mentality, check it before the game, because that's not going to serve him well.
Casey, at the beginning, you kind of opened up with how, this is something to be concerned about, the things that were exposed to the Eagles at points in that game. As you move forward here and you look ahead, what where do you see this team at? I mean, they're sitting 3-1. They're in a good spot, but they're coming off a game where it just seems like every now and then you can play a stinker. They played a stinker. I mean, it just, no matter how you look at it, they just didn't come out ready to play. Is this a moment of concern, or is this something where you feel like this team can and will shake this off and they'll get back on track? We
frequently talk in this segment about whether or not teams have Plan B, to where once you have Plan A, you can get so far with Plan A. What is it that Bill Belichick says? He says the more adjustable that your team is, the more you can adjust to situations, the less reliant you have to be on whatever it is that you do really well. So you can, if you can adjust and move to other things. Well, I'm looking at the Eagles. We know what they can do pretty well. We saw what they could do really well in the first 3 weeks of the season. Now it's like, okay, the run blocking's been pretty good, run defense have been pretty good, but now we're seeing, okay, now you've got weaknesses. And by the way, the run blocking yesterday I thought looked really good too for the most part. I thought liked a lot of what the Eagles were doing in the run blocking, but the run defense is having some issues. They still have the coverage issues in their secondary that I don't think the Lions are able to fully exploit, but other teams will be able to. You start looking at these things and going, okay, I like where the Eagles' future is, but I just can't help but look at this team and go, well, boy, I can imagine how good this team would be if it had a couple better cornerbacks, and how good this team would be if it had a couple of better receivers. You can see where the upside of this team is, and I think when they went 3-0, it was, boy, this team could really go somewhere, and I think now it's going to be, okay, this is still a team that's on the rise and making some progress, but I think these weaknesses are going to start showing up a little more.
KC Joyner is with us, but despite that all, there are some positives from this, and one is, I think, if you continue to look forward at the defense, the lack of snaps that they're on the field should help this team be able to remain a pretty good defensive team, whereas Casey, when Chip was here, they played good defense for about 8 to 10 weeks each year. They just completely fell apart late in the season, and they're down 20 plays, 20 snaps per game on the defense. So that's something that should be a factor, too. I mean, this defense should be able to stay consistent.
Yeah, they went from last in the league, or they faced the most defensive or offensive plays. They faced the most offensive snaps last year in the league on a per-game basis, and this year they have the least. And that's a huge difference, and it says something for what they're doing on offense. It says something for how well they're getting off the field on defense. Because here's the thing. The team gets rested, and you say, oh, you think the defense is going to play a lot better. The defense is playing this well. Even after yesterday's game, the Eagles rank first in the league in points allowed per drive, and they're also first in the league in percentage of opponents' drives that result in a score. I mean, they're tops over Minnesota, over Seattle, pick over Denver. You pick those defenses and say Philadelphia, in those two very important metrics, is the best defense in the league. So I'm not saying that's going to continue, but even for all the woes they had yesterday and all the issues they had yesterday, this is still a defense that is playing at a high rate.
Hey, I don't know that you've broke down the tape or looked at this one, but I'll just kind of get your opinion on it because it's, Matthews fumbles. Of course, the first reaction is, all right, why isn't Smallwood playing? Why isn't Sproles playing more? How come Kenyon Barner? Who's the best fit at running back for Philly? Is Matthews still the guy that you think gives them the best shot on offense?
I want Matthews should be more of I'm going to say a power back. So he's not quite a power back, but of those three backs, he's the guy who should be the power back. Matthews this year is averaging 7.4 yards per carry when he gets good blocking. League average in that metric is about 8.5. So that means that he's being used as kind of the power back, and that's really what you want to do. But you look at the other backs. You're looking at Barner as 10.5 yards per carry on plays when he gets good blocking. But none of the other backs are actually giving as much of a breakaway as you would expect. Smallwood is at 7.6. Sproles is at 7.6. So nobody on this offense is consistently getting a lot of breakaway plays. So I'm thinking that there might be situations, or they've got more talent than this. So I think they're getting to that power rushing play, but I'd like to see them get more plays into space and such. And that could be where if you can get the receivers to spread the defense a little more around, you can offer more space for these backs, because Smallwood led the NCAA in percentage of plays to gain 10 or more yards last year. So he's the kind of guy, if you can get him into space, you can get him some big gainers. So I think there's room for upside here.
All right, KC Joyner, just a couple of quick reactions on some things yesterday. Time to start thinking differently about Dallas?
Time to start thinking we keep talking about it ought to be Prescott, and they ought to have just Romo as a relief pitcher, and you start looking at that team and go, hey, Ezekiel Elliott, more rushing yards in the first 5 games of the season than any Dallas running back in history. And you think about the kind of running backs that Dallas has had in its history, so that's really good. This is a team that's going to be what they did a couple years ago when they went 12-4, won the division, and it was a legit Super Bowl contender. We might be needing to think about them that way.
Are you buying into Washington, or are you selling the Ravens?
I'm selling the Ravens. The Ravens that was smoke and mirrors the first couple of weeks, and they don't have anything of a running game or better running game now, but their passing game is still bad. I think their defense has some big weaknesses to it. I'd be surprised if the Ravens made the playoffs. We'll
preview Philly and Washington with Casey on Thursday. New York, they won 2 in a row, lost 3 in a row. Which team are they? The team that won 2 or the team that lost 3?
Hey, it's just like Eli. It's good Eli, bad Eli. I think they've got some problems. You got so many injuries on defense, though. You got so many problems. When you're losing as many players as they had, and they're going to bring it. They run a third-string free safety yesterday. Third-string for your week, and that was the second week in a row they had to play third-string free safety. I mean, and now you've got the other injuries. I just think when you've got that many injuries, it doesn't matter how deep of a roster you build, you're going to have problems getting over it.
Okay, 3 teams. Believe in Buffalo, yes or no?
Yes, at least to be a wild card contender. I looked at their schedule yesterday. That I can see 9 wins on that schedule.
Believe in Atlanta, yes or no?
If you go to Denver and do what they did yesterday, absolutely. Although I'll say this, I think that it's going to be the Devontae Freeman show. I wrote something for Insider Day, fantasy football related, looking at Devontae Freeman versus Coleman. Freeman's the much better back, and I have a feeling he's going to be their go-to guy going forward.
Believe in Oakland, yes or no?
Absolutely. They like to build a bully on the block, and their team, although San Diego, some of that had to do with San Diego's being the most snake-bit team in the NFL, but Oakland's building the bully on the block, and now they finally got Cooper. Cooper's been, by the way, really good on vertical passes this year. He just did there and put one in the end zone, so finally gets one in the end zone. I think that that's going to be a trend for him to move up, and I think Oakland can win double-digit games and be a strong AFC Super Bowl contender.
All right, one team misses the playoffs. Which one, Arizona or Carolina?
Carolina, they have a lot of problems. Their secondary's bad. I think that their running game isn't nearly as good. Arizona's got more talent, too, and I think Cam Newton, I think teams are realizing if you hit him, you can make him a different quarterback, and that's going to be a problem for him all year long.
All right, KC Joyner, he does it all for ESPN.com. He covers the NFL. He covers the WWE. So what was the WWE NFL Insider watching last night? Football, wrestling, or the debate?
He was watching football and breaking down some tapes and things. I'm putting together an article for Insider this week, though. I'm doing a series on rules of getting over, the psychological rules that professional wrestlers use to get over. Last week it was why respect is very important for a professional wrestling heel because it can make the crowd hate you even more. This week I'm going to take a look at a babyface rule and take a look at the rule of being an underdog and why it's beneficial for babyface.
Check out WWE on ESPN. KC Joyner covering that over there. Also the NFL, fantasy football, some college stuff as well. If it comes to football, KC Joyner's on it, and we will break down week number 6. We're flying through this season. We got to hit the pause button a little bit here. We'll get down to all the matchups you need to know on Thursday's show for Eagles and Redskins. I hope you guys are safe down there in Florida, Casey.
Hey, appreciate it. Yeah, we didn't get it too bad here. Got it on the coast, so we got kind of lucky. And Cat 4 didn't quite hit everybody, so all in all, probably better than it could have been.
All right. We'll talk to you Thursday then.
Thank you, man.